Benelli announced its new AI barrels, claiming that these barrels would improve your velocity and penetration energy downrange. And we're sitting here wondering, really? Is that truly what these barrels do? Or is it just some clever marketing? So today we're gonna put it to the test and see how the Benelli AI barrel stacks up and performs against other shotguns. Are you ready? Let's go. Let's go check it out. Before we jump in and start the testing, what is AI? No, it's not artificial intelligence. It stands for advanced impact. But just with that, you can see Benelli's clever. When you say AI in a barrel, you're like, what in the heck is that? Oh. Curiosity. Benelli is pretty darn good at marketing. So what is AI? Here is what Benelli says. Benelli Advanced Impact. It's all about improvement in energy and velocity, significantly improving both. The further the shot travels away from the muzzle when compared to existing barrel technology. The benefits of Benelli's advanced impact technology. 1, improved penetration. Their testing reveals around 50% deeper penetration. I have a hard time believing that, but we'll step in, we'll find out. Number 2, improved pellet density. Testing shows a more uniform and cylindrical shot string. That one we're really not going to be able to test. We will put some patterns on paper and see how it performs against other shotguns. Here's how we're going to test it. We're going to test velocity at the muzzle between these 4 guns, see if there's a significant difference. We are going to shoot patterns downrange, maybe about 40 yards, see if there's a significant difference. And then lastly, we're going to shoot gel blocks looking at penetration between a couple of these guns and see if it is anywhere close to as significant as Benelli claims. So to jump into this, I thought, what could really be all that different between Benelli's AI barrel and any other barrel? So I grabbed some different shotguns. We have the Benelli Ethos Sport 30-inch barrel with the AI technology. Of course, I wanted another 30-inch gun, so I grabbed the Century 3 30-inch barrel. And then out of curiosity, because I know Beretta talks highly about their barrel technology and the Stellium Plus and their lengthened forcing cones and all that, I have a Beretta 694, but this does have a 32-inch barrel. So we're gonna see not only 30-inch versus 30-inch, but 30 versus 32, and then versus a 28-inch. The reason I chose the Mossberg 935 is because it is overboard. It has a larger bore diameter than your standard 12 gauge, which is also true on the Benelli Ethos Sport or the Benelli AI barrels in 12 gauge. So we have some different variables here to look at. We know offhand that, especially in rifles, and I assume the same is true with shotguns, the shorter the barrel, the less pressure you have, the slower the velocity. When you change an inch or two, it's not very significant, but if you go from, say, a 30-inch barrel to an 18-inch barrel, pretty big difference. Now, what else could be different? What can you do with a barrel? Well, there's several things that are happening within a barrel. From the chamber, we go into a forcing cone. This is a section of the barrel where the bore diameter is getting smaller. It's forcing that shot down into a smaller area. And all 4 of these guns have significantly different forcing cones. We also have a parallel section. This is a section in the barrel where the bore diameter stays the same over a course of time. And then we get to the choke section. And I found some really interesting differences, and we'll dive into that in a minute. But let's step back to the forcing cone. These guns have various lengths of forcing cones, with the Beretta 694 having the longest forcing cone. Now, what I did is I took a bore gauge and I ran it up and down a barrel, looking at bore diameters at different lengths in the barrel. I recorded all of it, and it's not gonna be exact, right? I'm gonna be pretty close. I think I got the gist of it down. But with the Beretta 694, I came up with, looks like about 17 and a half inch length forcing cone, where the AI technology in this 30-inch barrel, I came up with a 15 and a half inch forcing cone. So the 694 has the longest forcing cone, and the Mossberg 935 has the shortest, like almost non-existent, happens over a very short distance. And then we have the Century 3 that's somewhere in the middle. Forcing cone is about 7 3/4 inches. Then we go from that forcing cone to a parallel section. I looked at this trying to say, hey, what's the real main difference? They all have different lengths of parallel sections based on how long or short their forcing cone is, of course. One thing that stood out to me is the AI barrel had the largest bore diameter in the parallel section of any of these shotguns by a pretty significant margin. The bore diameter is about 4/100ths of an inch larger on this AI barrel than any of these. Give or take a little bit, but 4/100ths of an inch for all practical purposes. One other really interesting difference I found between these barrels is that in these other 3 shotguns, not the AI, when you get to the choke section, they constrict in the first part of the choke section, and then there's a parallel section at the end of the choke, at the muzzle side of the choke, where on this AI barrel, it's the other way around. It's parallel at the beginning of the choke section, and then it constricts in the last couple inches. So these all have modified chokes in them. They've all been cleaned. We kind of broke down a little bit of the difference of the barrels, what we're working with here, but I want to ask you, what do you think happens with velocity? We are shooting today, the Federal Top Gun says muzzle velocity is 1145. These are 2 3/4 inch, ounce and an eighth, 8-shot, 1145. Do you think one of these guns will have a higher velocity than the others? Does this AI technology in the Ethos Sport shoot the fastest? What kind of margin of error do we see? I'm really curious. I was excited to wake up this morning just because I want to get hands-on and actually see what happens. If I didn't know anything about this AI barrel and I just said, hey, here's what we got, I would make the hypothesis that the 32-inch barrel is going to shoot the highest velocity. But let's stop hypothesizing. Put your comments down below. Which one shoots the fastest? Which one shoots the slowest? And let's jump into testing velocities. So what kind of velocity numbers are we talking about here on the advanced impact ballistics? I got a sheet. You can see it right here. At a distance of 1 meter, they're talking about an extra velocity of about 4%. But then what's fascinating here is you can see as we get down range, they claim that the margin, the difference, the increase is going to be greater downrange. Now, we're not going to be able to test velocity downrange, but we will be able to test penetration. I think those are some pretty bold numbers, but I guess we'll find out. First up, we got the Mossberg 935. 1225. 1202. 1228. 10 shots in, looks like we had an average of 1,214.3 feet per second. We'll dive into these numbers deeper in a little bit, but let's move on to the next gun. Beretta 694, 1243, 1202, 1214, 1244.7. Interesting. Another 10 shots in, so 1210.7. So that's almost 4 feet per second. Slower than the Mossberg 935. Did that surprise anybody? On to the Century 3. 30-inch barrel. 1213. 1185. Not a lot of variation between these 3 shotguns. Mossberg shooting the fastest at 1214, 694 at 1210. Century 3 at 1211. So let's go to the AI barrel, see what difference it makes. I'm excited, let's see. Let's go. 1263, oh, first shot is promising. This should be very interesting, ladies and gentlemen. So the Ethos Sport with the AI barrel ended up shooting 1,226.7 feet per second on average out of the 10 shots. That does make it the fastest shotgun out of the ones we tested. But some other interesting observations here. The second fastest shotgun, surprisingly, was the Mossberg 935. It has the shortest barrel at 28 inches. It has the least barrel technology, the shortest forcing cone. So I was a little bit surprised by that, but there's other things to look at, such as standard deviation. What was the standard deviation between the shots? Now that's not all coming down to barrel, that's coming down to consistency of load and other factors as well. But I found it rather interesting that the standard deviation of the AI barrel was 25.8 feet per second over 10 shots. The gun that had the lowest standard deviation was actually the Mossberg 935 at 24.5 feet per second. Now, which shotgun ended up registering the fastest overall shot? That would be the Ethos Sport with the AI barrel at 1,264 feet per second. So this is the fastest shotgun out of the ones we tested. If we look at just the Century 3, because we just want to compare 30-inch barrels to 30-inch barrels, the Century 3 shot 1,211 feet per second on average. This gun shot 1.2% faster average velocity. Now, Benelli claimed extra velocity of 4% at 1 meter. So we're kind of looking at the muzzle. That would have been 1 meter out. We're very close there. So it's going to be really interesting when we look at how this translates to downrange penetration. And we'll get to that in a little bit, but a few other things to point out. Compared to the 935, there was a 1% difference in velocity. Really surprised by some of these results, but how big of a difference does 1 or 1.2% velocity make? Downrange, I guess we're really gonna have to see. But so far it is holding true that we have added velocity out of the AI barrel. Before we get to downrange penetration, I think we need to look at patterns, because if you have increased velocity but your pattern isn't as good, does it really help you? So hopefully this AI barrel shoots some really nice patterns as well. And part of it comes down to the choke tube system in this, and I'm just gonna show you real quick before we shoot these patterns. This is the AI choke. In contrast, but you can see the size difference there. Pretty significant. Does size matter? Comment down below, but we'll shoot some patterns and find out, I guess. Last but not least, let's check out the AI barrel. Man, we found some interesting results from shooting patterns on this. I've been just diving into this information. Let me first just start with what we saw down there on the patterns. I'm gonna list these guns off from the one that shot the tightest pattern, and the way we're judging that is number of pellets in a 30-inch circle from the center of the point of impact. And we use an app to analyze all that, so it should be fairly accurate. Now, I should mention that we have modified chokes in all of these guns, but that doesn't mean they all have the same diameter at the end of the choke. We'll get into that in a minute. Number one was the Beretta 694, shot the tightest pattern with 68.7% of the pellets landing within this 30-inch circle. Let's keep moving. The number two shotgun was the Century 3, shot 66.1% of the pellets within that 30-inch circle. Number three, the Mossberg 935, shot 64.3% of the pellets in the 30-inch circle. And then last we have the Benelli Ethos Sport AI with 57.8% of the pellets landing in that 30-inch circle. We thought that was fascinating that the Benelli performed the worst, but there could be more to the story. Not wanting to just have one terrible result. Like we all know, you can't just shoot one pattern, that is what it is. You should shoot 3 to 5. We didn't do that with all the guns because we're really just looking at the AI technology today. So we shot 3 patterns with this Ethos Sport. If you average those out, we're still not shooting as good as those other 3 guns, and we only shot those 3 guns 1 time. So here's what I thought was interesting. Basically, there's a direct correlation between the percent of pellets within that 30-inch circle and the diameter at the muzzle end of the choke. If we look at the gun that shot the best, Beretta 694, if you look at the parallel section, which is at the end of the choke, the bore diameter is 0.710. The next gun that shot the second best, 0.715. The third best, the Mossberg, 0.747. So a much larger diameter out of the end of that choke. And then we look at the Ethos with the AI barrel, 0.7625. It has the largest diameter at the end of the choke. Knowing what we know now, if I was gonna shoot the Ethos, I might choke it down a little bit. On a modified choke, we're usually looking at about a 0.02 constriction. And so if you have a larger bore diameter and a modified choke, at the end of the choke, it's going to be wider. I hope all this is making sense. This is very interesting because I've never had it on paper like this. I've never went through all the measurements like we have with the bore gauge. So I don't think that the Ethos Sport or the AI barrel shoots bad. I just think you need a little bit tighter constriction at the same distance. We shot everything at 40 yards. Other than that, I didn't really have any problems with the Ethos Sport. I think it will shoot fine, but I think my biggest takeaway of doing this is that don't just pay attention to the constriction of the choke, pay attention to the diameter at the muzzle end of the choke. So I know on a Carlson's, which I have in the Century 3, it will say a 0.715. That's the diameter of the parallel section at the end of the choke. That is a factor to consider when looking at choke tubes as well. Just to complicate the matter, we're not here to really talk about choke tubes, but interesting observation. Lastly, we got to look at penetration. We're going to put some gel blocks downrange. I think we need to do about 40 yards since Benelli says that over distance this makes the biggest impact. We're going to take the two fastest shooting guns, obviously the AI barrel, and then the Mossberg 935. We got the highest, that was the second highest average velocity. We'll shoot shots downrange, see if we see a dramatic difference in penetration or not. Ready? 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 Let's do it. So for penetration, we got the gel block 40 yards away. We're starting with the 935. I went to a full choke on this. See if we can get some pellets in this gel. We'll measure it. Then we'll shoot the Ethos Sport AI barrel. See if we get greater penetration. Here we go. Well, we got plenty of pellets in there, looking a lot better with that full choke. The furthest penetration we have, oh, we got one pellet. I don't know if we can count that one pellet. It's sort of the outlier. Looks like at about 4¼ inches. Other than that, the next furthest, 2½ inches. So there was one pellet that went 4¼ inches, but that was the only one that went that far. Looks like most others stopped at about 2½ inches. We'll put a mark here on the side as well. Time for that AI tech. Let's see what happens. Also switched to a full choke on this shotgun. I think I mentioned that. Let's go check it out. Well, to the naked eye, it doesn't look significantly different. Looks like about the furthest any of them were going, 2½. I'm gonna call that 2½ inches. About the same exact thing the Mossberg did. So no deeper penetration, 2½ inches. You can see from the side here, almost all our pellets ended right there. There's nothing even penetrating beyond that at all. I think we just quickly shoot one more, just see if we get any different result. Okay, so on that one, we did get a few pellets to fly a little further. I mean, I'm gonna call it 2 5/8. 1/8 inch further on a few of those pellets. So what have we learned today? I think we've learned a lot. I mean, I don't know what you knew before, but there's a lot of takeaways from this video. Number one, barrel dynamics do matter. Different barrels will shoot different velocities. Now, how significant that velocity change is, does it really make that big of a difference? As we can see, the AI barrel did shoot the fastest, about 1% faster than the Mossberg. How did that change downrange penetration and energy? It doesn't seem to be significant. If we give the Ethos the benefit of the doubt and say it shot 2 5/8, that would be about a 5% increase, which we had to take a second shot to see that. We also learned and should know that muzzle velocities change depending on the shot. They're not consistent. So it's a thing of average. So we could have shot this several more times to see if this held true. When it came to velocity, we did do 10 shots, so I feel like we got a pretty good average there. When it came to the penetration test, we only shot the Mossberg once. We shot the Ethos twice just to see if it was any significance and difference. But the standard deviation of the shot speeds out of the Ethos was what? 25.8 was our standard deviation. So give or take 25 feet per second out of the muzzle, I don't think you're gonna see huge results downrange. The biggest takeaway for me, and I think for a lot of us, should be to pay more attention the muzzle end diameter of the choke tube. That's gonna tell you more about how it might pattern than just say straight up looking at whether it's a modified or improved cylinder or whatever. Those are general guidelines, but we saw today very clearly that diameter, these are all mod chokes and we saw very different results. Diameter makes a huge difference. Now, as far as a conclusion on the AI technology, I think it's very interesting what Benelli's done in their shotgun. It does have a long forcing cone. Its overboard has a pretty wide parallel section. If you do go with this gun, maybe consider choking it down. But as far as their claims, are they significant? Yeah, it did shoot faster, we saw that. Penetration, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say we got 5% more penetration. Nowhere close to what Benelli claimed as far as the numbers they saw. I'm sure they did more in-depth testing than we did today. I hope they spent a lot more time than the 3 or so hours that we were out here doing this stuff today. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's a lot of marketing. We did see some good performance out of this shotgun, but a lot of marketing goes behind it, and Benelli's good at that, and kudos to them. I think marketing goes a long ways in a company, and they do have great products to go with that marketing. When it comes to AI, advanced impact, what's your opinion? Comment down below, let us know. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember, whether you're in the field or in life, you're only gonna hit those shots you're laser focused on. So live target focused. See ya.